So I was born and raised till the age of 15 in New Jersey, born in Newark Hospital, affectionately known as the Armpit of Jersey. Some of our good friends like Skid Row and Bon Jovi from there. Moved to California when I was 15. I have one brother. He's a year and a half older than me, and opposite ends of the spectrum. I love him to death. But I was always a weirdo, always the different one, and grew up basically in California in the South Bay, Santa Clara, San Jose area. San Francisco was the destination point for anything cool, alternative, punk rock, metal, etc. And that's where I met up with Billy and Fern, who were already working on music projects. I was, kind of playing drums and singing a little bit in some punk rock and alternative bands. Got into the early British metal scene and like the very beginnings of like Motley Crue. Started singing. People started telling me my voice was better than my drumming skills, so I kind of went with that. The first rock music I was into was Elton John. I think I was about 12 years old in New Jersey, and I had a group of friends, and we formed the Elton John, club, and you could only join the club if you learned the lyrics to Benny and the Jets, and you could, sing it all the way through. And then the next thing was David Bowie, and then my cousin David, my dad's sister's son, my cousin, he brought me Aerosmith, Get Your Wings, and Foghat Night Shift. And from that moment on, that was it. I was hooked on rock and roll. And I don't think I was ever driven per se to be a musician. But I know that from an early age, from the earliest age that I can remember, I was a singer. I would sing commercials, I would sing jingles, I would sing, sitcom songs. My parents would be like, "Oh God, you're driving me crazy." I was singing. I didn't realize it at the time. And I think all musicians have a rhythmic side, so, being, drums was just kind of an easy thing. I'm also very ADHD. I was a very hyper kid. So I think that works against you at being able to focus on learning an instrument. And so I didn't, I probably tried over the years many instruments. I just didn't have the focus to be able to sit down and learn. When I met Bill and Fern, I was really just blossoming as a singer. And they kind of had something going already. And I had something going. I was in a band called Sweet Evil. We were doing a very kind of Sabbathy metal kind of band, and I met Todd Crew, who's actually the one who brought me into Jetboy. God rest his soul, my good friend, no longer with us, but he's the one that kind of brought me in. Our girlfriends were good friends, and they were like, you should join this band, they're ready to happen. And so I as the story goes, I was kind of messed up on drugs, and they picked me up out of the alley and next to the Mabuhay Gardens and brought me out to a rehearsal, and it clicked right away. And yeah, it happened very fast. Yeah, like a lot of bands in that time frame. We started getting notoriety right away. We started packing all the clubs. At that time, the North Beach Broadway Strip in San Francisco consisted of the Stone, part of the Keystone family, which was the Keystone Palo Alto, Keystone Berkeley, and the Stone in San Francisco. Across the street was the Mabuhay Gardens, which is a famous punk club, and above from that was the On Broadway. All of those clubs had bands like, Guns N' Roses and Poison and stuff like that. We also played with bands like the Toy Dolls, and it was just a really big variety and a big blending of punk and metal and glam. and everything that was happening around that time, around 1983. And it didn't take long for us to get record label attention, and management, and everyone was kind of coming at us. I feel like for me it was like I wasn't a rock and roll geek at that time. Like I look at a lot of guys that at a very young age knew who produced what record, and who was the manager, and who was the engineer and whatever. I was just kind of winging it and partying and having fun. But we started getting attention right away, and we decided to move to LA. We were playing with bands from LA, right? Poison and LA Guns, and Faster Pussycat, and those bands. They would come up and play with us in San Francisco, and we would come down and play with them in LA. And that led to all of our record deals, right? That was it. It was between 83 and 88, in a 5-year period. We went from inexperienced kids to major label record deals of the sort that hardly exist today. And that's where it kind of all began, and progressed from there. Getting signed to a major label, signing a major deal was a big deal for us. Getting dropped because the label decided to fire the West Coast offices like 2 weeks before the record was scheduled to be released was an absolute low. And then, from there it was just kind of trouble, because it took about a year for us to get re-signed. We had a lot of labels interested, but there's all the lawyers and contracts, and it took about a year. We got picked up by MCA. Then they didn't want to release the record, our first record. They wanted us to record a new one, and it was just kind of trouble from there. And then absolute, low for me was not being able to save our bass player Todd Crew, because he was the one who brought me into the band. I knew him before anybody in the band, and we did drugs together, and we're kind of on the same path. But as we come to learn after the years, some people have a higher propensity to be able to deal with pacing themselves and keeping your shit together, and some do not. Some, I can identify it now in personalities, the kind of people who are headed for disaster because they just don't have the strength to keep it in check. And we were advised by our management and people that he was going to cause trouble for us, and it just was. I wish it didn't go down that way. I wish I could have helped my friend, and him leaving the band, him being fired from the band, I think was the last blow. And when he passed away during our recording of our first record, Feel the Shake, at the time we couldn't even absorb what really was happening. So that was an absolute low for me. And then, I look at it now, absolute high again is to be 55 years old and still to be alive, to have lived this crazy, wild trip of a life, have a new record label, and to still be performing after over 35 years with Billy Rowe and Fernie Rod, original members from the band. The future looks bright. We have the new record is Born to Fly. We have 3 videos and singles from the record currently: Born to Fly, Beating the Odds, and Broken Hearted Daydream. We have a new video coming up in a couple weeks for Old Dog New Tricks. And we're already thinking about the next record. We're here on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which is amazing because we have aspired to be on this for the last couple of years. I have a beautiful wife. I live in Hawaii. I have 2 beautiful kids. my son Damien is 3.5, and my daughter Evangeline is 9 months old, and I always wanted kids. I never took the time to do it, right? So I'm an old ass dad, but you know, it's a beautiful thing because it's something I always wanted, and I love every minute of it, even the hardest parts. I love it. On my worst possible day, my little boy will come into me, you know, and tell me, I want to hear the live song, Daddy. I want to hear live songs. I want to hear rock and roll. And I'll put on the Born to Fly video. He knows all the words. He sings and he shakes his leg and he rocks out. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that if you don't have kids, you never understand. If you do have kids, you understand. You know, it's just one of those things. So I'm on an absolute high right now. You know, I'm happy in life. I'm happily married. I have a beautiful family. My mom and dad continue to be my biggest inspirations and my best friends. And you know, hopefully we're gonna do another record and keep going. And we want to get busy this year, right? We have a great management. We have a great booking agent. You know, Scotty Ludwig is our manager, and Chuck at Artists Worldwide is our agent. You know, we're on the cruise. We're seeing great bands. We can't wait to get on the road and get busy again. And that's all we want to do. Just keep it going.